Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Wolfeei. Today, I'm here with the second episode of the Minecraft Event podcast featuring Dannypicacho.
Hey guys, it's me.
All right, Danny, introduce yourself to the people who may be unfamiliar, considering you're not like a super
I'm not
streamer.
huge, I'm not clouded, and many people don't like
No,
me,
just a
whatever.
guy.
Okay, just a fella.
Yeah, Jip.
My name is Dannypicacho, or more famously known, asterisk, known as Danny Pistachio. I am the PB guy. I'm like one of the PB staff, like main guy. I'm like the project lead. I do game design for basically all the games. I also organize Genesis. I also organize the testing. I also do art, and I also do building, and I also I basically do a lot of PB. I'm like Isaac's right hand man, and
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like the PR, I guess.
The PR. I mean, I don't know. Based on recent 1v7s in Discord, I don't know if you should be the PR of PB. But
I say never what's true.
uh-huh. Okay, interesting. Anyways, on screen you won't see these, but Danny has the questions that I plan to ask or the topics that I plan to mention. I'll flash them on screen real
I'm out
quick.
of
Here you see them as well, my dear viewer. Here you go. And we're gonna get into them. Yeah, so the idea behind this episode, I already talked to Danny about it, is Danny's the lead game designer for PB. I'm the lead game designer for Block Wars, and you get some inside scoop type of talks about maybe how the process works and how things are balanced and tested and stuff you don't really hear about very often because MCC doesn't talk about it. So if we can, that's kind of the idea behind it. So, considering that game design is probably going to be the main topic of today, I guess we'll just start with the first question that was at the top of the list. What does the game design process for PB look like?
Okay, well that is completely dependent on the game, but
Mm-hmm.
if it's like a PvP game, it usually starts with me making like a layout with a lot of red arrows and circles and stuff that is completely illegible to my builders, which apparently pisses some of them off because my writing is illegible. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of just for myself, and then I'll usually make like a wall layout on Minecraft and then explain it to them, and then they'll understand. For stuff like hyperdrive, that one's more of kind of like a base idea of like pathing, and then you just kind of YOLO it and use world edit to make the like main layout, and then you just do a bunch of building to make it look nice.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like survival games, for example, while it does have a lot of planning, in terms of actual game design, it's really just mid. Like SG maps
Oh, we're
or any
skipping
movie
straight
like
to it.
wait, no, I'm just talking about the games. I'm just talking
Oh,
about
you're talking about the map mid. Oh, I thought you were talking
the map
about
doesn't.
SG being mid.
Oh no, it is mid, but that's the point.
We'll
I'm
get to that
kidding.
later. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh, with SG maps, it's super easy because you literally just have to design the middle, and then everything else you can just YOLO as long as it's like plentiful and has a bunch of POIs, points of interest. For those who don't know, you just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
stuff like lighthouse or city or farmland, whatever.
Right.
But the only thing that actually like matters in terms of gameplay design and being careful, not to like make it trash, is the middle area, since obviously that's where the main fighting is.
Mm-hmm.
Sky High is more tedious, but it's also easy because you only have to do a quarter of the map and then just copy paste it rotationally
True.
or mirrored. I mean, um, Trials of Fire is a really fun one because that one is not really Minecraft-y. That one's just pure like puzzles and logic and all that. So I
Mhm.
really love. So I don't even mind that Trials of Fire takes a bunch of time to do every month, including Genesis, because it is just fun to do. Like I absolutely love making the Dead Man's Dungeon puzzles, the one where you place the 6 blocks and you like read the 4 books.
Right.
I
Yeah.
love doing those, and I like getting my testers to like test them out, and then I'll just like send them the puzzle over Discord, ask them to time themselves. Echo Chamber was also a recent one. That's the building one. That one was really fun. I
Mm.
mean, realistically, you just have to, for that one, the main process with making those builds is something that can be explained with simple shapes. And I know that sounds easy, but you'd be surprised what the level of communication some players have when they're like under stress. Like
We
a
saw
lot of
that
the
very recently.
yes, we did. And I'll tell you right now, some of the builds we had in Echo Chamber, both for Ascension and Genesis, all of them actually the majority of them were originally harder in in testing, like when I first made them. Take for example the infamous Golden A in Genesis. Yeah, I think it was the third one. That one was originally an upside down Among Us with multiple colors, and I thought it'd be easy. You just like, okay, make an Among Us and then change the backpack to red and then change his visor to green or something like that. Or you'd be like, oh, make a V. Nope, people struggle with that. Or take for example the first one in Genesis was basically 4 colors on every corner, and it was a 2x2 on each corner. Pretty easy. Originally, it was like L shapes. Basically, it was. I'm about to do what a lot of players couldn't. It was a 2x2 on each corner, but then you break a single block in each corner, which would be a super fast way to explain it. But a lot of people don't like.
They don't think
realize
that
that there's like.
Yeah.
A lot of people. Don't have like the epic strats, so I had to make a lot of them easier. The hashtag, for example, in Ascension wasn't always completely blue. It originally had a couple blocks different, and I thought people would just be like, make a hashtag and then replace these specific colors. But no, because of those colors, people didn't even realize it was hashtag. They were like, make a checkered grid. Okay.
Interesting. I know you, with the build game, I know like recording off stream, you mentioned the inspiration behind it was based on Jackbox, right?
Oh yeah. Push the button in I believe it's Jackbox Party Pack 6.
The alien
it's like
game,
a game
right?
where you have to find some aliens, and then there's this game called the Bioscanner, where people will oh shit, I just got something huge. Mossy Macro. Sorry, this is the first time I've gotten more than 3 like reels. Sorry, where was I? Push the button. You have to. So the Bioscanner. In the Bioscanner, you put 2 people. The captain puts 2 people, who will get like an assortment of weird alien like hieroglyphs or whatever, like symbols, and a lot of them are very similar to each other. And then the captain will get 3, and essentially the 2 players also will have different ones, but the 3 that the captain has, everyone will have. And basically both the players, for Bioscanner to pass, both the players have to hit all 3 of the correct hieroglyphs. So what the captain has to do is basically explain these weird shapes that don't exist anywhere else. So you kind of just have to like make explanations in a way that your players will understand. Like for example, me and Kelton, we used to grind the hell out of that game. So we had like almost a strat for everything. Like there'd be one that would be kind of like an upside down U shape with weird like dots in the center, so we just call it jukebox. And if there would be like jukeboxes that'd be different, there would be like a jukebox with an open U at the top, so we'd say like open jukebox with open U at the top, bunny with 3 eyes, like we'd have all these ways of saying it. And then I remembered that game and I was like, because the main thing about Trials game design is that everything has to be kind of communication focused. The whole point of Trials of Fire trials are that they are based on communication.
That makes sense.
Then I realized, that game is like as communication as it gets. It's literally just purely communication. I was like, okay, well that's fire. How do I put this in Minecraft?
Right.
And that's like, okay, so I could just make a bunch of hieroglyphs and just replicate the game. But that'd be like
really hard.
It would. I feel like it'd be weird. It would like look weird. So I was like, okay, what if I just do like construction style builds? But then, like, even those would be I feel like it'd be too easy because I feel like the reason it works in Jackbox or push the button is because the symbols are quite complex. But I'd probably have to do stuff if I was doing like a 5x5 grid. I'd probably just do kind of what construction builds look like let's say a Pokemon ball, and then I'd maybe change the colors of one of them. But then I feel like that would be too easy. So I was like, okay, what if they just make it themselves?
Right.
And then that's kind of how Echo Chamber came to be. I was like, okay, well, I'll just give them simple builds and then have them explain it to their players and then they actually make the builds.
Would you say that, or do you remember other PB games being based on or inspired by other existing games before they were being made?
Yep, Chalice Chase. For those who don't know, the actual world is called Shine Thief because it's based on Mario Kart Shine Thief. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
that's actually what it. So, or like before we even had the name Chalice Chase, it was just called Shine Thief in testing. That's what we based it on. Um,
hmm
as for other games, um,
I mean, obviously, something like Sky High is going to be based on
okay,
Sky
well,
Wars,
yeah,
right? But
I'm thinking
yeah,
more of something that's like
like
related to
outside of Minecraft.
Minecraft.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Blockwars has a lot of that too. Obviously, Splat. Although I will say, Splat was inspired by Mindplex paintball, not
Yeah,
by Splatoon. But it was
fair
like,
enough.
yeah, it was like
I just Splatoon defied it.
the people who worked it. One of the people who worked it, like, was very much into Splatoon. So
Mhm.
Splatoon was kind of the main inspiration that was put
Yeah.
into like the code like side of things. I'm trying to remember of what other games are even in Block Wars that exist. Oh, Order Up, based on Played Up. Obviously, it's in the name, like pretty much.
I'm
Um,
a big fan of Overcooked.
hmm Oh, I mean, I never played. I only played Played Up, never Overcooked. I'm sure they're very similar. So,
I've never played that. I had a friend ask me, but I never had like more than one person who had it, so I just like never
hmm
bought it. I'd be down to try it.
yeah. That's why Order Up. Well, I mean, I guess the Overcooked is the same thing, but that's why like the
Yeah.
inventory was limited because we wanted people to like actively have to like be efficient in how you move,
Right,
etc. Right?
yeah.
But you don't want people to just have while gathering a full inventory slots available and they just get everything and then come back.
700 potatoes.
Which is why like you have a few tools and you have like 6 slots left or something, or like
Yeah.
7. Like, yeah, that was the whole thought process behind that. Trying to remember what else. I mean, like something like Photon is obviously inspired by just the existence of deathmatch. I think it was maybe supposed to
Yeah.
be one in the quiver initially, which it technically is still, but it's a little different. Um, and what else? Actually, Heist is inspired by Payday 2.
I love Payday
Yeah,
2.
that's the inspiration behind that.
That's actually I would not have guessed that. That's an interesting inspiration.
Yeah, it's so what I did. This was like a little while back. I sat down and scrolled through my entire Steam library, scrolled through like a bunch of Mario Party games, bunch of other like games, just whole bunch of games to get some inspiration for new like party game ideas. And Payday is a game I used to play with some of my IRL friends, and I was like, I was in a VC with Obi, MC Big Mac Plays,
Hmm.
and I was like, wait, Obi, Payday 2 would be kind of sick, wouldn't it? And I was like, fuck yeah. So then we made it. I guess it's that simple, really. What else? I think that's most of the ones I can remember recently. I mean, something like the Extraction, like crossbow only changes, obviously inspired by like games like CS and Valorant.
Yeah.
Um, because we were like, well, in this format it works, and like in a non-Minecraft format, this ranged exclusive works. Let's try it out in Minecraft, and boom, it went super well. And speaking of CS, Valorant, Shockwave, the most recent finale for Block Wars, is a really fun, interesting one. Initially, that was supposed to be a Rainbow Six Siege inspired game where you had
Like
like
watch breaking.
yeah, you had to like break into a building and place like a bomb and sit in like a corner and blah blah blah. Like because that's intense, right? If you like watch it, it'll
Yeah.
be intense. Then when we thought about it more than one time, we realized, oh wow, how do we explain this to everybody? And that's when we just were like, you could just do CS because CS has like
Yeah.
a pro scene and like it's a proof of concept that's worked, etc. Right?
Yeah. It's
So
pretty
yeah,
simple too.
pretty interesting. But so it's just Chalice and Trials are mostly the ones that are like non-Minecraft
Um.
inspirations.
Yes. Although I will say though, Trials does actually take a lot from other games,
Hmm
just because like you can't really take much from Minecraft anyways in terms of Trials.
Yeah.
Um, there's this. there's a little bit of Mario Party in there, but actually a lot of our inspiration is from this activity called Activate that Isaac and I go to at our city. It's basically like IRL party, you know, like it's a bunch of mini games with like activation boards on the ground that light up.
Right.
You kind of just have like a bunch of stuff with lights. For example, you can basically play Disco Fever in real life. There's stuff like try to hit all the buttons on the floor, but don't hit them moving. Because the board is basically just lights, right? So then they'll have a bunch of like waves of kind of like log leapers. There'll be like a bunch of waves of red lights that you have to jump over, and so those are really cool. And so there's some games in there that we got inspiration off. Like Devil Dart is kind of inspired off of. There's a game in Activate. I don't actually remember what it's called, but basically you get like a ball, and then there's a bunch of pipes everywhere, and these pipes like light up and have timers, and basically you have to with the timer you have to put the ball into the light and then send it to the next one. But since there's like walls between all the pipes, you have like your 4 people that you went with, and then you just kind of like pass. You kind of yell at each other. You pass the ball to each other. You're like, "Oh, my light is lit up over here," and then you pass it to them, and then it goes into one pipe, comes out another random one, and then they have to grab it, and then like, okay, who has the light up? So I was like, that's really cool. But what if we took away the limitations of real life and just put it on this big map with terrain and trees and, you know, like landscapes? And I was like, okay, well, Devil Dart would be like fire. So that's how Devil Dart came to be, because I just wanted a game where you have to just communicate passing to each other, and there's just a bunch of obstacles that force you to work together instead of just having one. It's in the same thing with the game Inactivate. You can't just have one guy run across all the walls. You're gonna run out of time.
Right. I think that's really sick. Like,
yeah,
I never really thought about like inspiration behind certain games, and I now have more appreciation for that one, because I'm like, oh yeah, IRL, that would be sick. Like,
oh, it is
throwing like a ball because like a pipe lights up and you're like actively like calming with that. It's like, holy moly, that sounds epic. Yeah. Like, actually, it sounds sick.
There's other games as well but funny enough, there's actually a game called Order Up at Activate, but I think it's like you have to like press some. Oh, I think it's the one where you have to press a bunch of buttons in the order that they're numbered while avoiding red lights that move on the ground.
I see.
If I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think games like that are hard to translate to Minecraft, just because, as we've seen with log leapers, dodging like stuff, you know, there's a lot of ping issues. Unfortunately,
those
damn I know a lot of people. Damn Australians. Log leapers is a game that I'd love to bring back, but unfortunately, it's too much struggle with ping.
I assume Log Leapers was the inspiration behind part of the Dragon Pit boss fight, right?
Yeah,
the shockwaves or whatever. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah,
a nice little touch. Okay, well, I guess it's good to maybe go to another question, because, you know, I don't want to just yap about one question for half an hour. What would you say is or was more so your favorite PB game to make? Like,
Trials of Fire.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was like, I asked the question and I realized, the answer is kind of already there. Like,
I guess for those who don't know, Trials of Fire was I've worked on every game, and I've had a big part in every game, but Trials of Fire was the first game where I basically took full leadership of, because almost every game has been kind of has just been like an Isaac idea, and then we all like work on it together, and then like we give our inputs. But Trials of Fire was basically my pitch. You know, it was like, I have this idea for a game. Can we do this? And then I kind of just did all the design, made the drawings, explained all the games, and all that. And then Isaac helped me. It was kind of just like a reversal of roles for that game. So that game's kind of my baby, and I mean, I just like it because it's like, it's very easy to control. You know, stuff like SG, Sky High, and whatnot are very hard games to control, because you can't really.
You're following a format, right?
Yeah. You can incentivize people to do stuff, but you can't like
force them,
right? Yeah. And that's why I think round robins are also really good games in terms of games. I know people find them boring, But in round robin like Minor Mania, I can literally base the map specifically around how I want people to play.
And then they
And
have to play
they
that
will,
way. Yeah.
yeah, they will generally play that way.
Yep.
In survival games, I can incentivize all I want, but if someone wants to third party or play this weird rat spot or do whatever, or you know, like target another player, or like two teams want to target one guy, well, I have no part in that. I can't do anything.
Mm-hmm. It's like the debate of like open world versus like linear storyline and
Yeah.
like a title games or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I will say though, my favorite game to work on new maps for is definitely Minor Mania, because that one is like a whole like process of just layout design, and I think layout design is always super fun.
Right.
I've done a lot in counter push. Usually it's Kelton though, so like with Minor Mania, it's more of like my time to shine with layout design.
Hell yeah.
Let me actually show you.
Cool.
Sorry to those who can't read bad handwriting.
Oh boy,
bad handwriting.
that might be me. All right, let me switch the scenes as this will appear on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put this up here.
Okay. The image. Here is my one of my epic drawings for
Oh my god.
Dentist Workshop.
Let's see.
I kind of look like a schizophrenic. I'm writing shit like, feel like I'm on the right track. Feels empty? Question mark. Don't know what to do here. Like, I showed this to the builders and they had no clue what I was trying to like say. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just build it out of wool and then you guys will get it.
So, I will be completely transparent. I've literally never drawn a map before building
Really?
it. No, the way I design like maps is I'll just grab like a solid color block to just shape it out. Kind of how like when you see like early game development, you'll see like a very like rough looking map. Pretty much that's just like one color, like pink or something, right? It's just fully the same thing. It's just a bunch of blocks. That's kind of what like Misty and I usually do for Extraction, which I guess is, you know, most comparable to Minor Mania in terms of being a round robin PvP game. And that's it. Like, we'll be like, here's the shape, and it'll be like, yeah, feels pretty good. Check the little like sight lines. Oh, if you stand here, you can be seen by like 3 different areas. That might not be a good idea. Put a wall there. Like, that's pretty much it. But no, this is crazy.
Yeah, dude, I got some for like SG too. Like I love the track little. It's not the SG ones aren't really layouts. That one's just for. These ones are more necessary specifically just because of what like they have to be made in World Builder and then imported to Minecraft. So like I give like our World Builder guy, whoever it is a different person.
That makes sense for SG, yeah, because it's so big.
Yeah.
Uberland?
Out of bounds.
Oh, that makes sense. I was like, what the hell is Uberland?
I think I have a bit. I have Kieran Omura, the Sky High map, and I have.
Oh, this is so interesting.
The original concept of Hell's Kitchen and Trials of Fire, which has for anyone who has played for anyone who has played Overcooked, it is just Overcooked. I mean, I like Overcooked because it. I don't know how Played Up works, but in Overcooked, you have 4 players who are usually split between 2 sides and are forced to. I mean, it depends on the map. There's some maps where you kind of free roam, but you're kind of split into being forced to do specific roles. On a lot of maps, you're split into 2 sides where one side has something that the other side needs, and you're constantly forced to yell at each other to get to have the other side do what the other side wants. Like, the other side has lettuce, and you're like, I need lettuce, and please toss me some lettuce, stuff like that. So that was my inspiration for
right. Yeah, Played Up is, you can tell from Order Up, Played Up has a bit more liberty in terms of picking like a role. In Played Up, you can build the room you're in. You can place things like pretty much anywhere. There's like conditions you have to keep in mind, but you don't lock yourself in as chef, right? You don't pick a role or anything. You can just like go in and out, and someone else can take over or help or whatever, right? That's kind of the idea, because that's what you can see with Order Up, is like, oh, we have enough ingredients. One of the ingredient gatherers become a crafter. That's kind of the idea behind that. Like, oh, you can adapt to whatever circumstance you're in, whether you have too many resources, not enough resources, or things are not going out fast enough. You can change your approach with your team. So it's kind of interesting to see like how unique, I guess, that is between Order Up and Hell's Kitchen, despite both being cooking games, which I don't think is a very like widely explored theme within Minecraft events. Maybe I'm missing some, but like
I think honestly a lot of events are kind of scared to flavor their games.
Yeah.
Flavor in the sense of word works really good there for cooking, but you know what I mean though, like right, it's flavored in kind of a theme. I think that's kind of why I like Biome Battle a bit. I never actually watched it, but like I look at the concept of it and I'm like, that's pretty cool that their games have a flavoring to them. And I liked it, for example, with Trials of Fire. I got kind of added a flavor to it where it's like, okay, well, the whole game is just based on like hell puzzles, like it's got a constant theme. Although it is just kind of general puzzles. Like realistically, it could be any theme it wanted to. It could be a Mayan temple. It could be a white room with no color. It'd be the same thing. But I think it's always nice to give games a bit of flavor.
Speaking of, this is not a planned question. It came to mind as something I feel like should be asked about. One of your most recent new games, speaking of white room, no color, and maybe a lack of flavor, Voidbound. How are we feeling about Voidbound? Because I know we've talked about Voidbound a lot as like, oh, this game might see a bit of a difference next time it appears. I don't know how much you want to talk about that publicly, of course, but
I will leak this because I feel like it is necessary to leak, but Voidbound is a completely undercooked game. That game was put on the pan and seared for like 2 minutes, and we called it a day. Like if you cut it open, that shit's still mooing. Basically,
it's blue rare.
It's very exactly like to be completely honest with you guys, that game was just it was just Dragon Pit diff. Like that game was being worked on while Dragon Pit was in like its main stage of development. So it was just like it was kind of just cast aside. We're like, okay, let's just do the basic of it and then just call it a day.
Yeah.
Like all the quote unquote budget, $0, but I guess the work budget went into Dragon Pit, and so Voidbound was just kind of very base game. But Voidbound does have a lot planned to it. Definitely, I actually have a really cool idea for a way to flavor it in terms of theme and building, which I think people will like. I think it's gonna be really cool. And then also just like the game itself obviously has issues, so big gameplay reworks. It might not even resemble. Well, it was still the base concept of Voidbound of having like you run through a bunch of different levels and stuff. It's gonna stay around, but there'll be big gameplay changes that will hopefully make the gameplay more fun to the
everyone
movementally challenged, I guess.
You could just say the worst for players. That's fine.
Bottom frags.
Because I do agree that's like the main flaw is like I talked about this with I don't remember who I talked about it with, but they brought something up. They said Voidbound is like a race game with elimination. And that just, when it's put in that context, I'm like, wow, that's correct and that's bad. Like, I don't know. That's, and I'm being just fully transparent. You already know my thoughts about it. Like, I don't think Voidbound is like the worst thing ever, right? I don't think it's like a horrible game experience. It's just like the mentality. The mentality going into that is like, oh, if I make a single mistake, I'm fucked, right? Like that. I personally am like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know about that one. But
that's the problem. Is that one was if we were to leave Voidbound as it is and then just like add more levels or something, we can fix most of the issues. But that issue is always going to stick around if we don't make big gameplay changes.
Yeah.
Because like realistically, like I'm sorry, but you can disagree with me if you want, but I think speedrun was a terrible game, and it needed to go. It just didn't work. It works
Partially,
great if you make a new map every season, but that's
yeah,
it.
partially I agree. Yeah, race games are flawed that in the sense that their maps have a very short actual good lifespan.
Yeah.
They're kind of dragged on for a little too long, which you kind of have to because who has the time to make a new race game map every like few events? That's like impossible because of the scale. I don't
Hmm.
think it's horrible though. I do think it was the weakest race game, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just like meh, because I
No.
feel like you guys with the competitive stuff like very much leaned into parkour for skips and stuff like that, which in a racing game kind of fucks up the pace a little bit.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, but we want more skill expression over anything else, you know.
mhm,
And I feel like in speedrun there wasn't enough skill expression. Like, sure, there's a competitive aspect to being prepared, but it just didn't feel like it was a true expression of a player's raw skill. If it kind of just came down to who had played the map before, who had watched it
mhm,
the day before, you know.
yeah,
Um, but obviously, you know, with Voidbound, we just didn't put too much into it. And of course, I mean, even if you were bad at speedrun, at least you get to play the game, and that's kind of like the number one big issue that I can't refute. It's just you. Well, now if you're bad at Voidbound, even then you just don't get to play the game. And you know, in other, for example, in speedrun, it was the opposite. You know, if you were good, you'd finish early, and
mhm.
but it doesn't matter if you play less when you're good because you got the neurons in your brain flying, saying "I go first."
Uh-huh. Okay. I guess a good follow-up question, considering we brought up competitive stuff, is when did you realize that high competition was the right approach for Pandora's Box?
Well, since the start of PB, Isaac and I have always had a very similar game design outlook. I think obviously like a lot of events have different outlooks, and some people seem to think that game design kind of just falls under one objective correctness, but I think it just kind of depends on the path you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Isaac have always been very big enjoyers of competitive style games. Like for example, Counter Push is just like purely competitive type of game. All the balancing and everything is based around making the game competitive
Mm-hmm.
over like maybe some silly stuff that would be kind of unbalanced. We're just like nah, like we want this game to be high comp. And as well for me, I mean I come from a background of Counter Strike and Valorant and Apex Legends and a bunch of competitive games.
Right.
Uh, so I mean I've always been a big fan of competitive game design. Isaac as well. Isaac played a lot of like comp Splatoon, and I was a bit of a weird one because Nintendo games aren't exactly known for their Smash Bros. Their dancing. But,
Right. Right. Right.
but
Right.
we never really had that like goal. I think it was just the mutual understanding we had. And even Kelton the same. Kelton's a big league player, a big or used to be. He's thankfully he's clean now. But it was just kind of that us three had this like big. We all saw game design in the same way, and we never really thought about the whole niche thing. None of us even like considered the idea of like Mario Party for fun style
Mm-hmm.
design.
Mm-hmm.
But then as PB grew, obviously that's what people saw it as, and we just kind of realized, oh well, this is why people like us. Like
Yeah.
we kind of like we're growing a lot, even though like Blockwars is quite ahead of us. I think like at the time we realized that Blockwars was probably at like just below 10K followers. We were probably in like 1 or 2K. We were like also like other events were probably like sub 500 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just like, okay, we're growing quite a bit. We're also getting big CCs. We're like, okay, but why are people watching us over Block Wars? And we're like, okay, well, it seems like everyone who talks about PB just loves the competitive aspect.
Right.
So we're like, okay, well, if that's what people want, that's what we'll give them. And then we've had games that we had ideas for that were like pretty casual. I'm like, okay, but firstly, how are our players going to react to this? They're gonna be like, boring. And then our player or our viewers, they're gonna be like,
Boring.
um, where's the 4,000 individual points?
Yeah, they'll be like,
You know,
where's the
that's why team games are hard.
PvP? Like,
Where's the PvP? That's why team game. I mean, I love making team games. I guess that's the only part I stray in that philosophy is that I love making team games.
mhm.
But I think team games are competitive as long as you make it right. Team games can be competitive. Minor Mania, Challenge Chase, Trials of Fire is still a competitive game. Like you're racing against the clock.
Right.
I guess you can handle it more casually, but realistically, you have to take it seriously and you have to communicate and talk over each other if you want to get things done. And I always design those games specifically to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just the difference in what gets the neurons in your brain flying. People think that for some reason that if there's no PvP or epic parkour, it's not competitive. Like I think you can make team games competitive, and that's really the only like part where I think the viewers look on PvE and like the staff look on PvE is different.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, me to an extent, Isaac a lot, and then me to extent aren't really like that big fans of individual points because at the end of the day, the only thing that actually matters is team points. Like individual is objectively just purely cosmetic. It
Yeah.
has no impact outside of player balancing.
Mm-hmm.
It is just purely cosmetic, and it makes you look good.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing that matters is your team points, which is why we don't care about teams. But like, okay, so what?
Yeah.
But obviously, psychologically, individual points are a huge part of competition because that's kind of how people compare themselves. There's a lot of comparing. Whenever you have a competitive event, a big part of it is people's freedom to have fantasy and to compare each other and do all this. This is why a lot of people like sports. And so something like individual points just kind of has to stick around just because otherwise, I feel like if there's any event to get rid of individual points, we are the last one that can do it, Like we've thought about it.
True.
But then we're like, it would just make no sense for the competitive niche event to remove that sports fantasy that people have,
I feel
I
like
think blockwars could do it.
Yeah.
And get away with it.
I feel like I've heard MCC or at least Noxtrew bring it up potentially as well as like an idea to remove indiv points, and it's definitely been talked about for blockwars too, because I mean I agree for like something like balancing purposes. Indiv gets more in the way than it helps, like almost consistently. It's almost never like, oh, this having individual points is so nice for balancing. No, it's horrible. For example, race game. I mean, race game scoring in terms of teams is always going to be similar-ish because teams are balanced. Like obviously if you have a good player and a bad player and a couple mid players, yeah, you're gonna get the same points as like the other teams that have the same format roughly, because race games are just kind of like, if you're good at Minecraft, you'll probably be pretty good at this.
They're just inherently balanced because if you have balanced teams, naturally you're just going to get players that are evenly spaced out along the individual leaderboard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there's no point differentials in team-wise in indiv games.
And the main issue is with something like a race, something we tested, which was I just added like a team finish bonus, and some people took issue with that because they were like, well, this doesn't seem fair for my indiv. Yeah, like, oh, if my teammates are bad, my indiv is gonna look bad in race, and it's just like,
yeah.
I mean, like, sure, and yes, that's the reason why we didn't do it. Like, yeah, sure, I agree, like, that's not the most intuitive way to score things, but would you rather have your indiv be slightly cooked or your team stand a chance at having any sort of difference in points from race?
Yeah.
Like, what's the main priority? What do you actually care about the most? And unfortunately, I feel like indiv is often looked at as a bit more higher prio. Like, look at the debate from the Sky High or whatever from the most recent Ascension, right? Where it's brought up that, like, Fruit didn't get as many points as Shane, or not enough points for his performance, which is a whole different debate, of course. And the only thing that's really looked at is indiv. Like, yeah, Fruit probably should have gotten first indiv for the way he played the game, but nobody's like, oh, that would have helped his team. No, they're just like, yeah, it's in there. But like, it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares,
So
man?
it's
Like,
a bit of a plague, but I mean, we just kind of have to build into it, or
mhm.
rather, we we don't want to feed it, but we don't want to suppress it. It would be stupid for us to suppress it.
Yeah,
Um,
I
and I
agree.
mean, when it comes to the race thing you mentioned, I'm pretty lit on that. I fully understand it,
Hmm.
but at the same time, it's like you mentioned, I'm a big intuitive guy, so like something like that. If it's like it's unintuitive because race is just an individual game. There is no team aspect. You can tell your team like where to go,
Hmm.
but there's no like helping your team. There's no like team power ups. There's no like like
Yeah,
boosting your team. It's purely an individual game.
yeah,
So it's like it would just feel weird to have that that aspect would really only exist in current race for the sole purpose of having point differentials and making the game actually worth something.
hmm.
But
Yeah,
yeah, again,
because
it's
I
just it's weird.
have an idea, or more so, one of our other staff brought up an idea that does kind of go for the same results, but has a different approach, which is better. Um, and it's like the reason I want this to be a thing for specifically race is because it's like one of the most noticeable games to not have point diff in terms of teams, and I
Yeah.
want like any game to be able to have impact, which I
Mhm.
agree. Like yeah, this race is a pure end of game. I agree. Right, that's true. But like it'd be better if it mattered as like a team, right? It'd
Yeah,
be
I
better if
agree.
you could be like, "Oh, we have a really good race player or we are like pretty good on average with race. We should keep this light." Like currently that's not a thing
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter. If you play race game 1 or game race game 8, you're going to almost get the same result because the point diff is like 50 between the top and the bottom team. So like
Yeah.
might as well make that like 250 or something, right? To make it like a small difference or whatever is like enough to make a proper like impact, and boom,
Yeah.
suddenly you can tactically vote for a race to be later or whatever other game, right? Is
Yeah.
in that thing because I mean
But
one thing with blockwars point balancing issues is like order up and there's another game. It's mainly order up that's looked at as like broken for scoring because of the way it's formatted, right? It's like, oh,
mm,
if you do well, you or if you do a thing first, or I don't even remember how it's exactly scored, but it's essentially like if you're doing well at the start, you're gonna do well at the end, probably for the most part,
yeah.
which is just like flawed. But like it's harder to nerf that than to buff other games, so I'd much rather buff
Yeah.
other games, which
Well,
is
I can give you like two quick solutions here. I mean, obviously they each come with their risks.
mm-hmm.
Uh, your first thing you could do is if you want people to accept that change better, you're gonna basically have to add like some team gameplay elements to the to a race.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's just realistically if you want people like if you want people to accept that change, you have to do something like that. But then again, that's if you care enough if people actually like accept the change.
Right.
Your second option, this is a weird one. It's something that I've talked to Isaac about in the past. Um, I should mention for those who don't know, Isaac is Colorful, the developer of Pandora's Box, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, something I've talked about it to them is splitting individual from team. So,
Right.
for example,
Yeah.
in race, you have your team bonuses, but they don't contribute to individual. So the game individually is still scored individually, but then your team points get a bonus based on your total team placement. That one is definitely a weird one because if you do something like that, you'd probably have to apply it to every game.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it'd be weird. But honestly, like I see it, if done right, I see it working. For
True.
something like PB, I don't think. Oh, I think we could, but some games are just would because they. Let's be honest. People would ask if we did that. People would ask us to include it in like Chalice Chase and Minor Mania, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't. Literally, the only way you can have genuine good individual points in a game like Chalice Chase or Minor Mania is if you have either a genius AI or a literal like human judge watching the game and being like, "Yep, this player had the most impact. Give them 30% of the points." Like, if we wanted, or if we were like super advanced coders, for example, in challenges, you could be like, if the player hit another enemy away, like away from the one with the chalice, that counts as a defense, and the amount of distance they traveled
while holding the thing as
yeah,
well.
while
Like,
holding it.
yeah, so
Yeah.
many things.
And then you'd have to like test that in like 100 games just to like get it right. Same with minor mania. You'd be like, okay, you'd have like defenses, kills on point, kills while capturing stuff. You'd have like just stuff mined.
Too
like,
much.
You'd have all these weird.
Like,
It's
too
like
much,
it's like there's just really no point to it. Like but so for us, we did something like that. Like we would 100% get asked to apply it, and we would not. And since we care a lot about competition and making stuff like intuitive, realistically, I would not want to add individual to Chalice and Minor Mania unless I feel that it is a good system.
Yeah.
I'm not doing no fucking like time held Chalice, because obviously a big part of Chalice is also your defense, your teammates who are helping you keep that Chalice, right? And scoring something like that in Minecraft would be a nightmare. So realistically, that game is never going to have individual until Mojang gets off this garbage ass engine.
No, you're right. Okay.
But yeah, but I think for something like blockwars, it's something you probably could consider.
It's definitely like the first thing that was brought up when the idea of adding team points to race. The first thing that was brought up was, oh, do we have a way to apply points like separately? And the answer is no. And I'm not a dev, but I can fully understand that points are like a major component to how the event functions. And that's probably a very tough thing to like fully rework or adjust. It probably takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, you would have to kind of redo a lot of games.
Which is just like not worth it. I'd much rather be like, hey players, yep, sorry, I guess you lose out on points if your team's bad, than be like, hey devs, spend 3 months coding in separate points. Like
yeah. Rework the whole point system.
Yeah, and adjust every game and test it and whatever. Like, too much effort. Not worth it.
Yeah, if it was like Block Wars 1, that'd be something cool, like what? But this far into Block Wars, it's like just not worth it.
All right. I guess considering we're talking about points, you or PB more so, right, was the first event I think to introduce damage points.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you feel that change has impacted both PB and just the event scene as a whole? Because other events have also adapted it into their systems.
Well, I was like the number one, like laser of damage points. I was the one who was asking for it every single test I played. I'd be like, I did 9 hearts of damage to this guy, and someone stole my kill, and I got nothing for it. This event sucks. I won't say that, but I'd be like, can we like do damage points? I will say though, I get a lot of credit for damage points because I kind of like led that whole thing. But I will say the actual damage point system we used, the pool system, was for the most part Isaac's design. That was like Isaac's like, okay, what Isaac said, what if we use this like pool system? And honestly, they don't get enough credit for that because I think that system is really, really good,
right,
as opposed to like some sort of uncapped or there was other weird ideas that I had for damage points that never would have really worked as well as the pool system. So like I think Isaac needs more credit for that, but yeah, they came up with the pool system and it worked amazingly.
Hell yeah.
I think damage points are really good just because specifically for PB they're really good because we're big like because we're a big comp event, we're also really big on players getting the fruits of their labor.
Right.
Like if obviously, in a Minor Mania challenge, there's really no way for us to do that. But in any game that it's like feasible, we want to award players for their efforts. That's a big part of our design.
Which I think is very good. There obviously is the flip side of what about survival points, but
Yeah, I mean that
Yeah,
one's a whole argument about
we'll
what you
spare that
consider the
one.
fruits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
that
spare
one's
that
like
one.
kind of what you consider the fruits of your labor, what
Hmm.
you consider to be the actual sweat off your brow, and what you consider to be like, oh well, you didn't really do anything, you know. And that's a whole. There's a lot of subjective arguments in that survival points thing because people seem to think it's a very objective thing, but realistically, it's not.
Hmm.
Like, like if Block Wars was to remove survival points, I'd be like, are you stupid? You know.
Hmm.
It's very dependent um on what you're going for. No,
Yeah, I mean,
but
yeah, to an extent, I can agree with that. Yeah, sure. It's just
but
like, yeah, the topic is so like hard to. There is no like fully correct answer because it is so like dependent on the environment in which it's applied.
yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
there's just like a lot of math to it. It's like, well, because then you also have to consider the impact it has on the actual game versus the actual impact it has on points, and
hmm,
it's very like, okay, well, points wise, there's such a small difference, and gameplay wise, there's a massive difference. So it's like
sure,
sacrifice one for the other.
yeah.
For damage points though, I think has MCC done damage points yet?
No, but
Yeah, they're
I
stupid.
think okay, I don't know, but
Sorry.
I know it's been brought up. I think they're considering it, but I'm not sure.
I think some other events have like a weird like assist system, don't they?
Probably, yeah. I mean, that's the easier way to approach it, right? It's just if a
Yeah, that
player
was
did
like one of
enough
my first
damage, they
ideas.
get assist points, which is like, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
they're it works. I mean, that was one of my first ideas, but obviously the pool one is just like more precise. You know, like it
Hmm.
gives you the points that you actually deserve. You know, it's literally it comes down to the literal percentage, right? Obviously, it's not 100% perfect because you can say stuff like obviously some damage matters more than others, right? Like,
Right.
let's be honest, at the end of the day, if you're doing arrow damage to a team that goes and heals it, that's meaningless damage. But if you're getting damage on a team that gets wiped, that is, that's objectively just better damage, but,
Hmm.
that's not something we can really check. And so the
Yeah.
system works for what it needs to do. We don't need some ultra AI system counting what is and isn't valuable damage.
I also feel like it sets the foundation as like a way to like apply points to really anything, where you can even like make it not for damage because like with a block burst, for example, in battle, there's the healing point pool, which I think is
Oh, yeah.
also really good. It's just it's the same like idea. It's just a slight twist. And I feel like there's other ways you could approach just having a point pool with percentages as well. Not from the top of my mind because I've never thought about it before, but there's it's like a type of scoring that I feel like is
I mean,
underused, right? It's
we
underutilized.
used point pools in Minor Mania, for example.
True, true.
Yeah, but basically the way it works is what you score is is put down as a percentage of the total score,
Hmm.
and then you out of a point pool you're awarded the percentage of that point pool, which is just so much better than because you'd have steamrolls that would be like 300 points to 10 and they would just get so many points and it was like, okay, this is stupid. And then you'd have, for example, close tight games that would be like each side would have like 50 points
Hmm.
and the difference would be like 5 points and then they get nothing because and again that's why also we changed it because you're not getting the fruits of your labor there. Like you put in crazy work to have like a close 50-50 game, but because you didn't get a gajillion points, so then and it also obviously there's exploits there. I mean, there was in testing there was teams who would literally like points max. They just both teams would just get as much points as possible and then just kind of like fight in the end to take the win,
Hmm.
just so that they would get a shit ton of points. And this can also kind of like bring back the what you were talking about with intuitiveness. I think realistically people just care more about the intuitive aspect of points than anything else. Like people will get upset if a team that went 3 for 7 beats them over a team that went 4 for 7. But if you think about it logically, realistically, if you have, for example, a team that went 4 for 7,
Hmm.
but all their losses were steamrolls and all their wins were tight knit games, and then you take the game, the team that went 3 for 7, and all their losses were close games, and all their wins were steamrolls, they're gonna get more points, and it makes sense because they their losses were close. They weren't like it wasn't like crazy, and their wins were glorious victories over the team that just barely scraped their way to a 4-7. But then people just don't like that because intuitively, just like, well, we won more than them.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I guess it makes sense. At the end of the day, the thing that actually matters is if you're winning games.
Right.
But yeah, I guess that's somewhere where kind of just have to bend the knee for some things like that, where it doesn't really matter if the points are more balanced. You just kind of have to. It just has to make sense for people. Otherwise, they're just gonna. They won't understand it.
Yeah, it'll lead to complaints because I know that's what
Yeah.
Biome Battle kind of struggles with right now. Not struggles. I don't think it's like a super obvious issue, but while talking, I like thinking like, oh, that's probably what part of the issue is with Biome Battle, is they have points that are like kind of odd, especially on the indiv standpoint. Like some people get rewarded for things that maybe don't seem like it should be the most rewarded for thing. Is from what Shane said. That's like he said like, oh, the indiv you get like points, or no, I think it was Sandwich. Sandwich said that like you get indiv points for like random objectives, and it's like, I don't know if that's like it's not great. So yeah, I think intuitiveness is definitely very important.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess points we've now had a deep dive into. Let's go on to games again, but other events games. What would you say is your favorite game in terms of design from either MCC or Block Wars, or run one from each if you have two?
Oh, thank God he didn't mention other events because I do not watch other events.
I knew that.
Okay, so problem is I also don't watch MCC. The only reason I know Block Wars games is because I'm in Origins.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be honest. Before I was in Origins, I knew maybe like 3 games, 4. I knew a couple,
Fair
but
enough.
I didn't really know how they worked.
Right.
Truthfully, I just I kind of only watch PvP because I work on it. I don't actually like watching events that much. It's just a personal thing. I think events are cool, but like me personally, I can't. I'm not much an event watcher,
Mm-hmm.
unless like my friends playing in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, besides the point, I'll answer your question. MCC, I'd say it's I don't know.
You could also give multiple options if you have like some that come to mind.
Yeah. There's a couple games that I haven't seen. Railroad Rush, I don't know enough about it. It looks cool, but I don't know anything. I don't really know much about it.
Mm-hmm.
Conceptually, games like Buildmark don't really appeal to me.
Right.
I think conceptually, a game that appeals to me a lot is Sands of Time.
Of course.
But I don't really like Sands of Time.
Oh.
Because, well, I like it, but I think MCC is missing out. I think they're making a huge mistake on its design, personally speaking, just because the game is way too individual. I feel like Sands of Time is too easy to just deafen and talk to your chat and do your own thing like it's a race game. And
Almost.
I feel like
yes.
Yeah, I feel like they're missing out on so many potential team aspects and team communication, and I feel like Sands of Time would honestly be like one of my favorite event games if it had so much more team aspects to it.
I mean, it has quite a bit. I mean, obviously,
it has, but like
the
I feel like it's just
timer,
down so much.
the timer needs to be communicated. People will say
yeah.
like, "I found a specific like door. Do you have the key?" Or it'd be like, "Oh, I found the key. Let's find the door." Like that's type of stuff that like very valuable information comes from the.
But they're also
the
like
comms
kind
there.
of, they're also kind of like very core comms. Like they don't
Yes.
actually, like it's kind of just like the core game information that's needed to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think stuff like having team puzzles or even having multiple puzzles that need to insist upon each other and have multiple people communicate to like work on those together, on like separate puzzles together.
Right.
Like I don't know, I'm not gonna come up with a bunch of ideas for them. That's up to them if they care. But I think personally that MCC is missing out on.
I can agree with that to an extent. I mean, I know MCC and SOT used to have, I think like a stone pressure plate thing where you'd have to like have 2 teammates or 3 teammates. I think it's 2. like stand on it to open something,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't think they have anymore. Probably for a reason, but they don't have that anymore. Which I do think was cool. It's really interesting. I did not expect that to be brought up because SOT is often, I mean, maybe not the exact best terminology, but it might be one of the most like glazed Minecraft event games of all time.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic for the record, but I don't think it's like as like insanely amazing in every regard. I don't think it's
Yeah,
that great to
exactly.
watch, in my
I think
opinion.
it's a great game. I just think that it's like
Yeah,
it's missing. Like I can't watch
sure.
it and feel like I'm satisfied. I feel like there's always just something missing. I'm like, where's the communication? Where's the comms? Where's the energy? You know, where's the only thing that's really making their blood pump is the timer.
Right.
You know?
Which is a very big factor, of course, because it's
Yeah.
part of the
Of
name.
course.
Um,
I just
yeah.
feel like, you know,
Mhm.
stress your player. Event devs, stress your players out. Trust me. I don't care. I
Not
don't
too
care.
much though.
Stress
Not
your
too
players out.
much. Not too much.
Make their hearts beat to dangerous levels.
Mm-hmm.
It'll make the viewers enjoy them more. And if they have a heart attack, it's like whatever. Okay.
Yeah, it's whatever. It's
Yeah,
insurance.
you have enough players. Just get another one.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, but what would you say? Because
Okay, for legal purposes.
you only really talked about like I don't know this game and I don't like these games.
Oh.
What would you say is the one you do
Yeah.
like the most?
I mean, I guess Dance of Time is just kind of the one I like the most in
Oh, okay.
MCC, just because the other ones are kind of like meh to me.
Like
You know,
plain,
what the hell is? Oh yeah.
like plain as in
For a second I thought that
like
was it.
planes.
Yeah. I
Not
get what you mean.
not the airport
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Well, and the other ones that conceptually look cool to me, I don't know enough about. I don't know enough about Railroad Rush. I think RSR is pretty cool, but as
Mhm.
a lone game, it's like there could be more to it.
I mean,
guess.
PB had Rocket Spleef as kind of had Rocket Spleef as a gauntlet game, right, for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you can guess why that people did not like the how MCC it was, I guess. Or people just kept comparing it to MCC, and we're just like we got annoyed, and we're like, hey, whatever, we're just gonna remove it.
Yep. That's fair.
Okay, for Block Wars, this one, you already know the answer to this, but this one depends on whether or not you want a game design, like my favorite designed game or my favorite
To play.
like experience game
Right.
to play.
Well, both.
My
You
favorite
can do
game to
both.
play. Okay, yeah. So I'll start with my favorite game to play is Extraction because that game is it's just a beautiful game. I mean, it has everything I need. It for an aim Andy like me, I like shooting my gun. I like
Mhm.
running around. I like playing around maps and positioning and all that. It's just a fun game to play. But on all the Origins I've played so far, I've disliked 2 of the maps and hated one of them.
Oh.
Right, man. But that one I played on Chubby, delete it, bro. I'm telling you,
I don't
delete it.
even know. What was the map?
I don't know. It had like that map had like a high ground sightline that literally one-wayed yourself, so it was like it would give you a disadvantage to take it, and it was just that pissed me off because naturally you see a high ground and you're like, okay, advantage point, and then it just like screws you over.
Was that the first Series 3 event?
I heard it was a really old map. Maybe
Oh.
I hear it was a really
high
I hear it was a
ground
reused
sightline?
really old map.
What?
I can
Oh.
hold on. Let me show you a screenshot. Actually, feel free to put this on screen because I think it's a really funny image.
All right, I'll do that. This is not the image that's
Blockwars.
currently on screen, but I'll pull it up.
No, where is it? Extraction. Where did I make this?
I'm so curious about what this is now.
Where did I put this? Hold on, it's deep in my files right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe it's in. Okay, whatever. I'll just find it from. I posted it in Skibbity. I'm just gonna Control F myself.
I feel like I know what map it is, but I might not be right.
Sure. As image. Eeny, miny. There it is.
Because yeah, that's.
I made this for the rap battles.
Oh.
It does show the map.
You don't like that one?
Yes, I
What?
hate that map. It's so bad.
That's the first one. That's the best one. What the? Oh no,
It's
maybe not the
so-
best. It's one of the best ones. But what?
It just had its sightline design is so doo doo, bro. Like it just like
I don't know if I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I'm
Well,
not gonna agree with you.
did you make this map?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should kill you.
Well, me and Misty made it, of course.
Yeah, I think we should kill both of you.
Okay, cool. Um,
I don't know. I like that map. I had a I had quite the experience on that map, and every time I tried to take a sideline, I was just like bombarded with getting one weight and then having like no actual real value from any sideline because the sidelines were just like why is like just remove that stupid slab in front. Like I get that it or like move it down or move it up or something just so that it like because like it is just a one way. Like you cannot see the other side aside from like their toes, and it makes it so awkward. And then the flanks on that map are like claustrophobic. They're weird. They feel like they were just kind of put there by accident. You have this like straight line flank on the side that takes you to nowhere. It's static. It has no like dynamic entry points or exit points. It's just one. It's point A to point B, and then you have like. And I also just dislike claustrophobic points on extraction because I'm a big fan of ranged fights. Obviously, ranged fights have their ups and downs, but I'm a huge fan of ranged fights. So when I have to spam someone at close range, I hate those fights because it feels like you jump left or you jump right, and those are literally just a 50-50. Like close range extraction fights are just who gets more coin flips in a row.
True. I do agree with that.
Yeah, and having claustrophobic areas like in this area where everything is so close to each other, if anyone rushes that area with you, then you're forced into a close range fight, and it's like, oh, this sucks.
I just remembered that I forgot to put the image on screen, but for the viewers, Danny hates Steam. This is the map. That's crazy.
I despise that map.
That's crazy. Oh my god.
Like, albeit I had a terrible team for it, but like, it was just like just from seeing it, I was just like everything about it pissed me off.
And if I remember correctly, you said your favorite design game was Blitz Hunt, right?
No, I like that one because it's fun.
Wait, what's your
but
favorite?
My favorite design game is Trailblazers.
Oh yeah, no, that's right.
Which I mean is funnily enough because I don't actually enjoy playing Trailblazers, but that's just because I don't like movement. Like that's just not you cannot in any way account for that. Like there is literally no possible way with the most genius you could have like Miyamoto himself, collab with like Gabe Newell and shit, and that they can make the ultimate Minecraft parkour game. But if someone just doesn't like Minecraft movement, they're just not gonna like the game. There's nothing you can do about it. At the end of the day, it's like if you make a super cool shooter and someone hates shooters, doesn't matter how cool the shooter is. They're not gonna like the game. But I mean, I think it's really good just because as long as you don't absolutely despise movement. So I mean, I still enjoy it because I don't absolutely despise movement. I just don't find it fun because I don't find movement fun. But you have always something to do, and if you don't like that thing, you have another thing. If you don't like, there's no way you can despise all movement types, right? Like you always have something you can't do, and that's why I like it so much, is because, and it's also just freedom of choice. I think the only thing that sucks about Trailblazers is the point design is like very it's kind of weird just because it kind of forces players to do something specific if they want to get the most. It makes people point max, or like, okay, there's no point in doing the parkour because you get more points from doing this, and it's like, but if you just look at it like on a base level, it's like, oh, you can just do what you want. Like for top frags, the game probably sucks because of the fact that they have to point max, but for me, I don't give a fuck. So like, I go into that game like, I like Trident, I'm going to go do Trident. I like hyperdrive, I'm gonna go do Elytra, like it's just like brain off, go do fun movement, whatever, and then and there's the parkour. I like doing some parkour, but I just go into the like intermediate parkour and I get to have fun. And I don't have to do the hard parkour because that would piss me off, but I don't have to do it.
Yeah. I think a hard part about Trailblazers score balancing is giving people the freedom to choose, but then also not making one specific like
Yeah.
thing the best, right? Like
It's also just
right now you can win by doing something unique, I guess.
yeah.
Like for the
You
most
got beat
part,
out.
you want to go for the time trials, whatever courses, and get
Mm-hmm.
the best time, sure, right? But you also need that to be like worth the time to not make the completion too OP, because completion is so much quicker than a time trial. Of course, time trial is like ice boat takes like a minute, which like
Yeah.
in a minute you could complete an entire completion based thing and get like twice the amount of points. Like
Yeah.
you have to have some sort of incentive and balance and whatever. Mostly an incentive to play a level twice, because some people complain like, oh, time trials, if you don't get it on your first attempt, it's not worth going for a second. Whereas here, like technically, you could go for a second attempt and get a nice reward out of it.
Mm.
But yeah, no, it's that is the toughest part. I do agree that point design in Trailblazers is a little flawed, but it is also very difficult.
I mean, it's also I'm gonna be honest. It's also like not too much your guys' fault because the point design in Trailblazers is also inherently flawed to a degree, in the sense that it also just kind of depends on who's playing. You know,
True.
like the roster kind of dictates the point direction, and it's like you cannot account for that unless you change the points after you've chosen your players. You
Which
know, like it's
also is very clear in Origins, because in like main, like
yeah.
Trailblazers max points will be like 500 something, which is pretty good for like max points in like
Mhm.
first indiv. In Origins, it'll be like 600 something, which is like way
Yeah, it's
too
ridiculous.
much. And it's like, you can't fix that. That is
Yeah,
unfixable. So yeah,
yeah.
that is tough. All right.
Oh yeah, because it's very like when we design points for I'm gonna leak the epic design process of
Mm-hmm.
point balancing and PV. It's basically for a game, depending on the difficulty of it, we want absolute perfection to be a little bit over 2,000 points team wise.
Right.
So take for example, Trials of Fire. What is Trials of Fire's absolute perfection? It's getting first, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not unfeasible. It's actually pretty doable. With a good team, it's pretty doable. So we set it at about 2,000 points.
Right.
Take something like Chalice Chase. Getting absolute perfection in Chalice Chase is like it's basically unfeasible. The enemy team has to completely throw, and you have to have both chalices the entire time
Right.
for all 7 rounds.
Right.
So that one is set at like 2,500 max points, and then something like Minor Mania is roughly the same because that one's also pretty unfeasible. You have to literally 100-0 the enemy team all 7 rounds. Absolute perfection in a game like that. And then, but obviously there's some differences. We don't do absolute perfection for like SG and Sky High because that's so unfeasible. It's never ever gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
No one is ever gonna kill all 28 enemies
Right.
3 rounds in a row. Like we all saw Cal in PB4, and even that's like a fraction of what absolute perfection is. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of base it off of what is a feasibly insane performance. We actually use PB4 Cal as a pretty good example for like what's in like a feasible insane performance, and then just base like a max points off of that. And then we kind of just like divide it among players, and then just like do tweaks depending. And then after testing, of course, based on average gameplay, we tweak the divided points a bit so that the average games aren't getting low scoring just because they're the average game is not going to be close to absolute perfection. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how we do. Yeah, but then again, the problem is all of those have a cap. So then something like, and in round robins, I mean, it's the cap is realistic. Besides obviously the cap we set, another big cap in those games is, one, team balancing, and two, the fact that you are limited to 7 rounds. Trailblazers, if you were to take this approach, you'd have realistically you would never do absolute perfection as completing everything because that's unfeasible. So you would probably set an insane performance as the feasible, perfect, like the really good performance, and then set like what you want max points. Let's say it's like 600 or 700 individual to be like that, like a super insane performance.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is everyone is based off of that specific performance and the thing is, depending on your roster in the CC roster, your feasible best performance is probably like at best 80% of the Origin's best performance.
Something like that, yeah.
Right?
Close.
Yeah, like in Minor Mania, we don't have to care about that because you're limited by team balancing and the 7 rounds.
You have a set
in
points, right?
Yeah. Yeah, plus the set points. I mean, Trailblazers, even if you do a set points there, there is no limits because all the players have the freedom to do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
So you literally, the only limit you can do is a cap, and that would have to change depending on the roster. So that is just why I think it is inherent and not necessarily your guys' fault.
Yeah,
because that is just kind of like there isn't really no way to balance points in a way that doesn't just have major differences between rosters.
Mm-hmm. True. Okay. Let's see. Oh, actually, speaking of games, there's an interesting question that
Infinite
I don't
games.
know. Infinite. Yeah. Would you rather have unlimited games? No, that's not the question. Would you rather have unlimited bacon? No. The question is, has there ever been a game idea that you wanted to do, but then another event did it before you got the chance to do it, and then you ended up no longer doing it?
Rocket Spleef Rush.
Wait, what?
Not really.
Okay.
No, okay. That's I guess it was a gauntlet game like that. I was like pissed for a day and then I didn't care.
Mm-hmm. So wait, you said a spleef game?
No. I said Rocket Spleef Rush.
Oh, Rocket Spleef Rush. Oh, okay.
But that was a gauntlet game, so like.
But that's a game that existed
also, I hate
before,
we
right?
hate Spleef.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking like you had like an idea that you're like, oh, this is gonna be really good, and then another event does like either the same or something similar, and you're like, ah.
There's been times where I've been scared. For example, when Hoarders was a pretty simple game concept, but when I did Hoarders, someone told me about what's the payday heist in in blockwars. I'm like, shit, like is that just Hoarders? But then like I found out it wasn't, so I was like scared. I was like, oh bro, we're gonna get copycats, even though we had this like 2 years ago.
Right.
I think an easy one, but not one that we actually ended up caring about, was Jumping Mad plus Checkpoint Championships. We had it. Jumping Mad was about a year in development because we're lazy, shitty devs. Kidding.
Okay.
We were just working on other stuff, and Jumping Mad was never really in our priority. We were always working it on the side, but it had been in development for like a year, and we had the whole difficulty system a year before we released it then too. And then Mayhem has Checkpoint Championships, which is it's just the same thing, and we're like, oh, now we're gonna get called copycats.
Mm-hmm.
But then
I don't think it happened, right?
Didn't care. Oh, it did, but people didn't care because it's a movement. It's a parkour game. It's like it's not a crazy unique concept. It's not like you're not an absolute genius for coming up with difficulty paths in a movement game.
Yeah, that's makes sense. If you're like, oh, let's do parkour, but not the same course, that's probably the first thing you make. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, what if there's multiple courses with different difficulties? Yeah, no, that's fair. Mm-hmm.
When I told staff members about Trials of Fire, at the time I didn't know what Grid Runners was, by the way, but I had people telling me about Grid Runners. But when I saw Grid Runners, like I looked at it and I was scared, but I felt confident after seeing Grid Runners that Shots of Fire was unique enough, because Grid Runners design has a lot of its levels not really what's something that I'd put in Trials. Like they're not all communication based. A lot of them are kind of like, some of them feel kind of warrior wary, and some of them feel like 1 to 2 players can do a lot of it, which I didn't really want to do. And also, um, I think there's just a lot more grid runners levels, aren't there?
There's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, there's
If
like
if
you
you're
do a
talking
lot.
about one per time that Gardeners is played, I think there's 8 rooms, including the final leap. So you have
Yeah,
7 puzzles essentially that you're doing, as opposed to what,
yeah,
5 in Trials.
yeah, 5.
So it's a little different.
Yes. So like those have to be kind of blitz, and then ours was more of like put more time into the puzzle. And so I mean, at the end of the day, I was confident enough that, and also with puzzles, realistically, you're if you even if we did a grid runners, it'd be fine because our puzzle design, or to an extent, because our puzzle design, obviously, with as long as you're not doing the same types of puzzles,
Mhm.
like there is a lot of creativity with puzzle design. You know,
Yeah.
like I don't think grid runners has a devil dart or grid runners has a
It's also a
echo chamber.
different approach because Trials is like comms based, and honestly,
Yeah,
Grid Runners
exactly.
feels more like an escape room. If I'm being
Yeah, that's
completely honest,
yeah.
it's like complete this objective to escape or to
Yeah, almost
complete,
like
right?
WarioWare. Yeah,
Kinda,
like a
yeah.
longer version of WarioWare.
Kinda, yeah.
And yeah, that's why I felt confident. Overall though, I don't actually really think there is any games that we had in mind that got taken by someone else. Do you have any?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's why the question exists. Uh,
Let's hear it.
we had
Was it us?
a no, it was
Oh,
MCC. It's not like a
ooh, the
crazy
worst one to
like.
take from you.
Nah, it's fine because I think it aged well that MCC has it and we don't. Um, MCC like semi recently revamped Bingo to be like task based that relies on your teamwork and not just be collect item blah 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 whatever, right?
Hmm.
Um, we designed a bingo game mode, or I designed a bingo game mode more so, that was focused on tasks. Where I was like, oh, this would be really sick. It'd be super unique and so sick
Hmm.
and cool. And I pitched it to like Fine and Curry. I had a meeting with them being like,
Hmm.
guys, I have this idea. They were like, oh, this would be sick. And then, yeah, MCC took it pretty much. There was more to
Unfortunate.
it. There was more elements to it, which I
Yeah,
don't necessarily want to reveal publicly because it might be reused.
because you could reuse them. Yeah.
Yeah, but that unfortunately that idea had a lot of thought behind it, a lot of passion behind it, and then MCC was like, "Hey guys, we made a
Really?
bingo change." And I was like, "No,"
That's unlucky.
which is
Now,
just
actually,
like
now I
so
want to
unfortunate.
know what is your favorite MCC game, Pandora's Box game?
Oh.
That's right, I'm doing the interviewing now.
Well, PB, my favorites, like if we're including mini games, my favorite's the sheep one in
Dear
Gauntlet.
Mayhem.
I think it's
Just ignore Dragon Pit, right?
well, Dragon Pit is like really good too.
No,
Obviously.
I mean ignore
Oh,
your sheer mayhem performance in Dragon Pit.
those damn Spanish people, man. They got it. They got it going for me. Um, I like that one because it feels very like silly and unique. Like I've never seen a game like that before. Really, the closest I guess is like the TNT round in Blockwars Spleef, right?
Mhm.
Kind of, and I like that one a lot. So
Yeah.
that's like my
I
favorite.
actually don't think that was our original concept. If I'm not mistaken. There's this guy named Swanlet who he does like mini games for a different server and is good friends with Isaac.
Mhm.
Mainly works on like this thing called like Cake Team Towers, which is it's kind of like a roguelike with Hexagon Heat is also from Cake Team Towers. There's like a boss fight where you do little mini games. I don't actually know where Sheer Mayhem is from, but I heard that it was from some game that Swanlet had who like gave it to us. So like shout out them, but uh, if I'm not mistaken, I think that, or at least the premise of the exploding sheep and like the code for it was from Swanlet, and then we kind of like turned it into a game. I'm not fully sure.
I think if
Yeah,
it's like
MCC.
a full game, that's
Oh yeah, it's a
tough.
full game.
Cause like you know that I
So you ate
haven't
them
had
all.
no, I've had very mixed experiences in PB. Some of them have been
Yeah.
like really bad, and some of them have been
Hey
really
man, you had your
nice.
3 wins.
I have had my 3 wins. Time to get third again. I think from a design standpoint, I really like Minor Mania.
What
Um,
up?
because I mean, we both agree that like round robin is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think, as much as there is a very big focus on melee PvP, that like focus on not PvP with the whole collecting stuff and depositing
Mm-hmm.
is really cool. I like that a lot. I similar to a lot of people like it when a PvP game has a second objective that has a lot of impact and isn't just fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that was brought up a lot in a certain
Oh
Discord.
no, I fully agree. I know, I
Yeah,
do fully agree.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Which I think
PvP
Minor manages does it
perspectives.
really well. It's like very well incorporated. It doesn't feel like an added thing. It really feels like it's part of the game. Like you can't have Minor Mania without the PvP, and you can't have Minor Mania without the Gathering, right? It's just
Yeah.
a very good combination of both, which I really, really
Yeah.
like. I do think similar to every round robin PvP game, like if you go 0 for 7 in Minor
Oh
Mania, you're gonna have the
yeah.
worst time of your life. But that's
Yeah.
Battle Box Extraction, same thing, right? So
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
this.
count
Yeah.
that. Because I for Blockwars really like Extraction for kind of the same reason, where it's like PvP game, round robin's good, but it's different because it's ranged only. Like that's kind of the flip there. I think
Yeah.
MCC favorite game. It's tough because I think the ones I would consider my favorite are ones I haven't played, which is like
Oh,
Meltdown or SOT. I think are
he's
really cool.
jealous.
Kinda, yeah. Meltdown is like a ranged only. It's so hard to really pin down what it is in terms of like format because it's not really a battle royale, but it's kind of a battle royale, and it's not really like just a PvP game because there is a big focus on the coin crates you have to collect,
Mm-hmm.
but that like you
Meltdown is pretty cool. Yeah.
you could remove the coin crates and it still plays similar, which is like it's not like a perfect way of implementing it, but it's like good. I just think that game looks really cool. It's very good to watch for the most part. If you have a good POV, similar to SG, if you have a good POV, it'll be good to watch. Otherwise, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems really cool. It's like number one MCC game I would like to play. That's just really. It just seems really good. SOT is just very good.
Okay, agree.
Yeah, like SOT is just very good. Like I want to just play SOT. That's just an experience you're not gonna get anywhere else, really.
Yeah.
So that one's got to be up there. Um, it used to be Rocket Spleef Rush, but then they added it to Island, so I've played it too much now. So I don't like it as much anymore.
Yeah. I think all the times I popped into your streams, you were playing Rocket Sleep Rush, and I was like, oh,
Hmm.
he's rocket main now.
I mean, I liked it a lot. I still like it. It's a really good game. But I used to like love it. Not just love it, right? There one less
Mm.
love. So that's.
Ooh.
But yeah, so it'd be probably Meltdown for MCC, or SOT. It's honestly a tie, and then for PB it's either Minor Mania if we have to be a full game, and if it's not necessarily going to be a full game, it would be the Sheer Mayhem or whatever it's called because it's fire. I think it's sick.
Yeah. I respect those opinions.
Hmm. All right, then. I guess just a very simple, quick question. Maybe one that doesn't really apply to you much, considering you're more of a Genesis person now. But is there
Mhm.
any like content creator or streamer that you think would make sense to be in PB that you really want to see in PB?
Okay, well, I'll start this by saying that 99% of the CCs in the event community I did not know before the event community because I was never much into Minecraft content aside from PBG hardcore. What
Mm-hmm.
up?
Mm-hmm.
I'll see PBG MTV. Yeah, like that, whatever. But but besides like, I mean, I watched like when I was like younger, I played like Bed Wars and I watched Fruit Berries and that was kind of it. And like I knew who Misty Cat was. I seen like one or two videos and there was like um a couple others I think maybe, but that was really only it. But I guess I mean I would like to see a branch out to um competitive players who aren't necessarily like maybe I'm fanboying a bit, but like seeing Zekin and I fanboyed a lot when It's Timmy was playing. Same
Mhm.
with like Zekin,
Mhm.
because I think it's super cool that like pro players for other games are trying out Minecraft and then they get to like play competitively. And obviously they're gonna just like they just have gamer genes, you know, they're just gonna have good mechanics. Obviously
Mhm.
they're like not good like Minecraft mechanics, but they just have overall good mechanical understandings of, you know, a first person game.
Mhm.
So like seeing them play is always super exciting to me. And obviously I've watched a lot of It's Timmy back in my Apex days, so it was super cool to see that. So
I
I
think
guess
that'd
it
be
would be
cool. Yeah.
probably, yeah, probably like pro CS Val Apex players. I think like a realistic one that I'd love to see. I'd love to see SK
Right.
playing
Yep.
PB.
That would make sense.
Um, yeah.
Okay.
For non-realistic, I mean, I don't know. I could just probably name like a billion CS:GO pro players, bro. Stewie TK and PB. Could you
Oh
imagine?
my
Oh, like
God.
oh Shroud, bro. Could you imagine?
Shroud would be crazy.
Oh my god, dude, do you know like Mo with a zero, like M0E?
No, I do not,
Oh my god,
unfortunately.
that guy was like the crash out goat in the old days of Counter Strike.
Holy
That guy
moly.
would be so funny to have in.
I feel like someone who it's definitely like very hit or miss, but I like Moxie could be pretty cool. I don't know if you know Moxie.
You like I've heard that name?
Moxie used to team up with
Just
XQC in
oh
Minecraft Monday all the time.
oh
He's
yeah, I
also
don't
like
remember
I don't remember specifically what type of pro he was. It might have been Overwatch, but I could be very wrong. Or like a very
that.
high
Hmm.
comp player. I think he would be really funny in an environment like PB. Um, it's just like
Yeah,
getting him is like
yeah. I mean, no, it'd be super cool to branch out to competitive players that don't necessarily play Minecraft, and they kind of introduce them to the competitive scene through TV. But
hmm
yeah, those are like,
I mean, those are types of players I would love to see in Blockwars too. Like more
yeah,
like pro players becoming regulars. Just
yeah.
seeing more like variety gamers be it is cool. I
It's
think it
also
would be sick.
risky with PV because if you have someone that doesn't play a lot of Minecraft, put them into like a high comp experience,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
if they naturally pro players get mad easily, and then like if they
yeah,
just do bad, they're gonna be like Minecraft competitive Minecraft sucks. I'm never playing this again. Also, like
yeah.
Block Wars. Realistically, if you're if VTubers are your third frag, sorry, you know it's like realistically, yeah, any most pro players for any game are gonna just do good
hmm
at Block Wars,
hmm
and so then they're gonna be like, oh, I gotta try more of that competitive
Right.
scene. So like honestly, the like it's risky there, but I mean if maybe the strat is just wait for players like that getting Block Wars, and then if they're like, this is a banger, I love Minecraft competitive, then and we slide in.
I mean, hey,
It's
not
like
a bad
starting them
idea.
off with PB is like it's doable, but it's like it's very risky. You kind of just have to give them a good team, otherwise
hmm
they're gonna never join any Minecraft event ever again.
Right. True. Because I feel like, I mean, very still very unrealistic, but like pro players that are like already familiar that would make the most sense, and it still makes very little sense. Is like yeah, Timmy and Zekin
Hmm.
could maybe happen something. I don't know. Maybe,
Hopefully,
and like.
I love
Like you'd have to have like five up there or something, right, to connect it, and then you'd need to
yeah,
give them like an absolute insane demon player like Toph. Oh,
yeah. Oh, we crashed. What happened?
unlucky. All right, move back to Fission. I'll just go to a different server. But yeah, like you'd have to give them like Toph or like some other like lead player that's just like gonna carry them or like give them the info because like there's also like newcomer diff obviously, right, would be like big, and they're not gonna fucking study the games. Like they're just gonna go in blind and think
Mhm.
I'm it's Timmy, I'll fucking roll this shit, and no they won't.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, okay. um so this I asked I guess let's just do two more. One more question next is how do you think the longer time in between events affects PB?
I think it is one of the best decisions we've made. Um, I, okay. I'll be careful how I explain this because I don't want to sound snobby.
Mm-hmm.
But um, obviously there's the whole quality over quantity thing, and I would be
Supply and
careful with those
demand
words.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I gotta be careful with those words because you don't want to say that. I don't want to be like monthly events or quantity over quality. They're slop, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But this actually, I remember having a big discussion with big friendly discussion with Shalom, the Mayhem dev, about this, and it's kind of like it. I think it very much depends on your fan base, and it's a double-edged sword. I think for PB, it's amazing because PB has always been kind of known for like big changes and like big booms, quality and stuff, and like just like being out there. You know, we've always like taken big risks and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and our fans always kind of expect big stuff, and our fans also get angry when we don't do a lot of changes. Um,
Which is crazy, by the way.
but yeah,
I
but
think.
then again, it is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, psychologically, just in terms of how we are as devs, Isaac and I personally, Isaac especially is a big does like a big hater of kind of regurgitating the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of agree. I think I would kind of hate to just do some minor changes and just have have events feel samey. I get that people want to play more, but when you can surprise people every event, it's a really good feeling.
True.
I think it's a double-edged sword though, because I think Blockwars has enough of a dev team where you can argue that you have enough changes, but realistically, like let's be honest, if you make barely any changes to a Blockwars, fans probably don't care that much. They're gonna be like, put my favorite CC in.
It's more like Blockwars kind of has a guaranteed level of variance because of its roster that like sometimes
Yeah.
doing very little changes is okay. But it also definitely is one of the events that I think is like most in need of active content, specifically in terms of upping the game roster, because we only have 9 active games right now. Like, yeah, you can only cycle 1 in and out. Like, you need a couple more.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is one of the main goals for this year, is to kind of bump that number up a little bit, while
And
still
then
keeping everything else going.
yeah, and it's especially worse obviously for smaller events. So pretty much all of them take the same strat of having having a season every month.
Yep.
I think more events probably should look to doing 2 months, but I obviously, since these events are small, they want to grow. They don't have the same. It's much riskier for them to do something because then, for example, they fall into obscurity or they fall out of like relevance. So I can't really just say small events. You guys should do this because realistically, like
Yeah, guys, take a break every other month.
yeah, it's a very very risky idea. But I will say it is, on the topic of it being a double-edged sword, is either you have a fan base that doesn't care and just wants quantity, then you as a developer are essentially trapped. Imagine that you're a chef, right? And you have a customer who just wants more food, but you really want to make something. You want to make a cake, or you want to make something really cool. Like you watch some Guga Foods, you saw something cool that you want to make, and you want to do that, but that's going to take time. But you don't have the time because customer wants another burger. Okay, well, like sure you can keep at it, but you're kind of being restricted from your own growth. While, for example, I think in like PB's case is you have customers who are constantly asking for a new plate. They just had a burger. They don't want a burger anymore. Now they want a sous vide steak. Oh, well, now that they've had a sous vide steak, now they want fancy spaghetti. Now they want something new, right? And so it's basically forced growth in the other case versus our case of, oh no, sorry, it's restricted growth versus forced growth, where every PB has to be better than the last, otherwise we're slacking or we're, you know, we fell off or something, you know, like that's
Right.
kind of how the general fan base sees it. Is just if you make an event that wasn't better than the last, then like what are you doing? You know, like we it's nice to be able to grow your skills and grow your, you know, your ability to cook, but you're constantly being forced to, like, you're literally being tested at all times. While, you know, in the other case, it's the other side of the sword where you are, you know, you're kind of being constrained to from being allowed to really express yourself as a developer and as a creative, because like the fans just, they just want more. They don't care. They just want to see their favorite CC, whoever it is. They just want to see them play again, you know. So I guess for smaller events, just it really is just a risk. Like I think it's a good idea if depending on what you want to go with, but you have to understand the risks, you know. Like PB is lucky that it's grown so much because we don't really have to worry about falling into obscurity or not being relevant anymore, as long as we don't take like a massive break with no words and nothing to, like, you know. Another thing about breaks is if you take a break, you have to come back with something, you know. That's also why I feel bad for Mayhem. Like, I know Mayhem has some like issues, and obviously it's on break right now, but let's be honest, if Mayhem comes back and they don't have something massive, what are their fans gonna say? They're gonna be like,
bruh,
all that for nothing.
Yeah, like really, bruh,
like,
you were gone for a
yeah.
whole year. Well, not a year, but like half a year, and for what?
Yeah, and that's exactly how these kind of events would kind of just fall into obscurity. I think if you're a small event, you have to kind of keep that in mind. Is if you want to take that risk of not producing as much quantity, then you have to be ready to up your game each and every season. That is just something that you have to commit to. Otherwise, if you do quantity without the quality, no one's, or I get, yeah, sorry. I mean, if you go for quality over quantity and you don't have the quality, then you have nothing. You know, you go for, you know, it's the same with the other way. If you go for quantity over quality, but you're not giving them the quantity, then your event falls off, because at the end of, if all your event, it's like Funny Wars. Like, look what happened when Funny Wars is a prime example of quantity over quality. I don't mean that in the snobby sense, but they are just like, they're not adding a lot. All that really matters in Funny Wars is that they're hosting like 1 trillion events a day. You know, they're hosting so many events, and it's just something for people to do. The number one prime thing about Funny Wars is the quantity. So, and what happens when they go on break? You know, it's a quantity over quality event without the quantity. So then people get mad. Where's the quantity? Where's my event? Where's the Funny Wars? Can you host? Can you host? Can you host? You know? So, just, yeah, double-edged sword. There is no objective, true, best solution. I think PB is very lucky that we are able to pull it off. And, but again, there's no like objectively best way to take it. I think both directions really, like, are good. It just depends on if you can do it and if your fan base is fine with you doing it. Just also, yeah, I mean, Dragon Pit helped a lot as well with, like, I don't think most of our fans, like, don't really care if we take breaks, because as long as we come back with something huge, you know, they're chilling. You know, they saw Dragon Pit, they saw what we were capable of, and if we just, as long as we're delivering them the quality they want, they don't care if the event is every 2 months. I mean, that's also why the split helps so much, is because it kind of helps with that quantity, you know. Like, even though it's the same event, they do get, you know, you get 2 stakes every 2 months.
Just one is a little bit bigger than the other.
Yeah,
one of them might be A5, the other might be A3 or
A4, A3, yeah.
Like, yeah.
One's Wagyu, one's like grass fed. Okay, man.
One's Japanese Wagyu, one's Australian Wagyu. I mean, that's just how it goes.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're still
So eating Wagyu.
as long as as long as we're not feeding you Wagyu every month or every 2 months, we maybe then the next time we give you 2 plates of spaghetti, then they're fine with it. That's why I'm very lucky with the fan base that PB has grown, because I honestly think it, maybe not perfectly, but I think it close to perfectly it represents what we want to do. Like, it represents well the kind of development style that myself, Isaac, and the other staff have.
That makes sense. Yeah, just like slow, but like you put a lot of
Slow.
effort into it, and like
Yeah,
QA testing probably as well, and whatever, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Kind of in line with what was brought up as the final question, another one that I didn't have prepped, but I just had to pop up, is with the upcoming break, are there any like major goals that you would like to accomplish this year for PB?
Major goals this year. It's Timmy. Just kidding. Half kidding, I guess. It's not really a goal. I think a goal is definitely. I would love to add 2 more games by 2026. Guaranteed, very, very, very likely gonna have a new game by the end of the break. If not, at the very least, like maybe 17. Don't hold me on that, please.
Nope.
Because things happen sometimes. We've had previous game concepts that, when actually like put into practice, we're like, yeah, this is shit, and then we scrapped it.
Is it the one that we talked about, or is it different?
I don't remember what we talked about.
Well, I
don't remember the specific game,
but
we've had.
I guess it's fine to say because it doesn't really matter. The game idea from Blockwars that I handed over to you.
Oh, well, we haven't like.
That's totally fair. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was because
honestly,
and again, no public info, but you said there was a specific type of game you wanted, and I had that specific game, and I was like, you know what, you can have it.
That game that you handed us, I think so far has been a blessing. I actually kind of see it coming to fruition, but of course, a lot of testing has to be done, because
we'll see. Yeah,
it's a very volatile concept, but I would actually like to try it. But there has been like other like small ideas we've had that like they never were like tested, because like during the development process of like thinking about how it would work. Because it's easy to come up with a game concept, but once you actually have to like
make it,
rather when you have to actually like make it a game, because you can be like dodgeball but with snowballs, right? But then once you actually decide, okay, so how's that gonna work? Okay, so both sides, and then you have the snowballs in the middle, and then you start coming up with how the actual game works, and you're like, wait, this sucks. That happened to us with some other games.
I've had that too.
Yeah.
Where you're like, this is such a cool idea, and then I'm like designing
you have a dream about it, and
I'm like
you start writing it
on paper.
As you're writing it down, you're like,
what? What's the point? Like,
it sucks.
Like, cool, you do this one thing, and now what?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's mostly party games where that's happened, where I'm
yeah,
this would be so sick. Like, in terms of I picture it in my head, like the gameplay. I picture it like, I'm like, oh, this would be so cool, and I write it down. I'm like, okay, so what are you actually doing in this game?
Yeah.
Like, I have the end goal. I don't have the build up, and the build up would be very weird. So
I'll leak one, because there's a very, very, very small chance it would actually come to fruition. But when the whole we had a couple ideas for like a round robin games, and one idea we had for a round robin was once the whole like mace thing came out with like the maces and
the wind charge.
Wind charge. We were like, yo, let's do something with that. And then we just had like ideas, and we're like, oh, could you imagine like a round robin game with the wind charges and the mace combat? And then we're just like, okay, but what do you do?
Yeah.
So we kind of bullshitted some objectives, and we're like, these just don't really fit. Realistically, it's just a TDM, or not even. It's just literally just it's just a fight to the death with a funny mechanic. The objective is just there so that it doesn't feel empty. And we're like, okay, well, this sucks.
Right. I'll reveal one for blockers, I guess, as well, because I don't think this is happening either. You know, like in Mario Party, there's those games where you are like a it's like pairs of two that are like on the side of the screen with like an auto scroller-esque thing, but there's like things in the way that you have to like kill or like a get a like remove or something. Like you have to do stuff to progress to like the next room and etc etc etc.
And like, there's a lot of those, but like, yeah.
That format, just that format was going to be a party game.
Yeah.
But then I was like, what are you actually doing? Like,
Yeah.
what's the point? Like, like that could still happen. I don't think it will, but it could technically happen. I just had like the way I had it in mind is like, the game name was Mole Mechanic. You were supposed to be in like a tunnel, in a tunnel where you had like an automated machine. You were supposed to like have people in the machine or like just around the machine running around, kind of like tunnel block style, where you have to, if there's a bunch of tunnels that you go through like a mole, and you have to collect coal and put it in your machine to like make it go faster and make it keep going. And then also you'd have to like, you could sabotage teams. I didn't know how, I still don't know what the hell the sabotage would be, but you could sabotage teams. You could like stop people from sabotaging or close a door. Like it would be, it sounds like it could be interesting, maybe, right?
Like based off what you told me, like it sounds cool, but then
like when you actually have to make it, I'm just like, what do you do? Like how do you make that a thing? How do you make that intuitive? How does that work? And it's like, yeah, maybe that'll still happen, maybe, but probably not. It's because like, what do you even do? So yeah, but that's interesting. So your major goal is just to make 2 new games for PB, which does that include reworks or no?
No.
Okay.
I think a major goal for me personally is to have every game be generally liked. I think stuff like Jumping Mad and SG are obviously in very volatile spots where they're like half glazed, half hated to hell, and it's like, okay, but like, what if everyone was just kind of like, yeah, it's a good game? Because like, it's cool having so many people glaze SG as being like the pinnacle of Minecraft video gaming, but then when the other half is like, this is the worst experience of my life, I'm like, honestly, it would just be better to have everyone be like, yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's aight.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So like, these kinds of games, I want every game in PvE to be at a spot where all of us at the staff team are genuinely happy with it. There's a lot of games that we're all very happy with Chalice Chase. I mean, that game has crazy reception.
Yeah, and like
Minor Mania, pretty good reception.
Temple, like
Temple.
Yeah, games that are just like
like I very like Trials of Power, really good reception. Obviously, like everyone's gonna love it just because not everyone enjoys puzzles, but even the people who don't really like puzzles are like, I mean, yeah, it works. Like, there's no like crazy hate. I think those games we're very happy with. And Hyperdrive has obviously like a couple issues, the same issues that Speedrun had. So like, we're not fully happy with Hyperdrive. We're not fully happy with SG. Obviously, we're not fully happy with Jumping Mad. That game obviously has a lot of criticism. So yeah, big goal is just to get to a point where people aren't arguing over gameplay or game roster reveals. You know what I mean? And the only arguments over game roster reveals are no, the game I was good at is gone.
Right.
And not like,
I hate parkour.
I don't want to play this game.
Yeah.
That's a big goal. Obviously, it's a big ask. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I want every PB game to be good. It's like, okay.
I want PB to be the most popular event.
I want PB to surpass Block Wars. Like, that's not happening because we have a niche and we have to stick to that niche. If we want to surpass Block Wars, we would have to get rid of our niche or
that's just
get
hard.
Like mob ties. And if we did get rid of our niche, we wouldn't even. It would still be really hard because Block Wars is already bigger, and if you have a foot race between two events that are basically the same, you know, like if we become Block Wars, like okay, well the people who already watch Block Wars, which is a lot more people, like only watch Block Wars, don't watch PB. Like sure, we can maybe steal viewers, but like people who are only watch Block Wars, I'm like, okay, but why would I watch PB if I already watch Block Wars?
Sure. Yeah.
You know, which is why our niche is so important to us, because that specific sentence is so important to our growth. Is why would I watch PB when I can watch Block Wars?
Sure.
And not that many viewers realistically care about the intricacies of game design. They just want to see Purple have fun, or do good, or you know, be goated, or whatever. So, yeah. Obviously, I want PB to grow. I mean, like, I guess, you know, like maybe, I don't know how realistic it is, since it's hard to tell with like exponential growth. But you know, like 10K followers on Twitter would be pretty cool by the end of the year, maybe more, something around there. I don't know, something like.
How many are you guys on right now?
We're at like 5,500.
Okay.
I think.
How much growth?
Which, keep in mind, Dragon Pit gave
yeah.
us like.
I was gonna say
1,500 or something.
Yeah, because of the
like
Spanish team, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was more like 1,000.
Right.
And then just like a pretty steady growth afterwards.
I mean,
and then 14 and 15.
Yeah. That's what's gonna happen when you have these creators in, especially when they're in twice. Suddenly, their audience will go from, you know, being familiar with the event to being a fan of the event or something like that, right?
Exactly.
So that's just how it's gonna go. All right. Interesting. I think this is a good little yap sesh. It's a very different one compared to my previous one.
Our usual.
Well,
yeah, the sandwich one.
The usual is one sample, not two sample size now.
Oh, I thought you meant like the usual, like our own personal yap sessions that we have in VCs, or
I guess
late night yap sessions.
Technically, but I feel like the late night yap sessions are more like hypothetically speaking, analysis speaking, and also leaking.
Yeah, those get dirty, and yeah, a lot of leaking.
So we can't do that here. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could say it is pretty different to our usual.
But I feel like to an extent, the inside scoop is given that like can be published. You know, we talk about the process of how some things are approached. We talk about like what are the goals we have when approaching game design, or what's like, you know, the things you're specifically looking for, things you're trying to avoid, or stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is
you guys
good.
have a whole like process. When you guys make games, you have like a standardized sheet, don't you?
Yeah, we do. I mean, you saw it because I sent you one. Yeah. We have a template.
I was like, damn. Ours is kind of like, give the idea, write a pros and cons list, and then explain why, and then explain what the most likely complaints would be, and then explain why you think that those. But I guess this is my own personal process. It's basically, I'll be like, here's the game idea, here's the pros and cons, and then here's complaints that I predict will happen. Because, like, you're not like, if you make a game design idea and then you can't think of any complaints, like, you're trolling. Like, there's always going to be some complaints, and so you have to like kind of predict those, and then you kind of have to also write ways that you can avoid it, or ways that you, or even another thing that's also really good for game design concepts is compare it to another game, then write why that game would not work, and then why your similar idea fixes those things that prevent the other game from working.
True.
But it's like, it's kind of just a Discord message, you know? Like, maybe we should do a sheet, but let's be honest, like, game design ideas are usually me or Isaac coming up with an idea.
Yeah.
Usually Isaac, but like recently me now.
The pros and cons list, I think I've only had, I remembered only being a thing we used once, which was for Order Up, because obviously we had like restrictions in play and different options of how to approach things. It's like, which one's the best? These are the pros, there's the cons, and you're like, well, this one has 3 pros and 3 cons. This one has 4 pros and 2 cons. I guess that one's better. Like something like that. It's for the most. It's roughly like that. It's been so long, so I don't remember the exact details. But yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well, I think that's probably a good point to round it out. It's been about 2 hours. almost exactly.
Oh my god.
So that's now the record, I guess, for the longest one. I thought I was
I
gonna.
guess you gotta go 3 hours next one.
Oh God.
Hey, to be fair, I did warn you in advance, bro. When it comes to game design, I can yap for a really
I
long
mean,
time.
I'm not complaining. This is good.
Hey,
I like the Yap sessions. This I'm just saying. The audience is
and yeah,
learning new stuff. Where are they hearing this otherwise?
that's true. That's why I was really intrigued by your idea when you told me about the podcast because I was like this needs to like exist more in the event scene, like kind of like news style stuff. You know, it's the same thing I told you last time where all we really have is like inside MC in terms of that's something that actually exists and
Which is
little
great.
mini shout out to like
Yeah.
Sphere News magazine, I think it's called. I don't really like read too much of their stuff, but I think the fact that it exists is really cool just because it's like Minecraft event news that people can look at. I wish there was more event media. You know what I mean?
It's just
So
hard
that's why I
because
think this
like
podcast is cool.
there's a very small actual audience for Minecraft
Yeah.
events. There's a lot of people who watch, but there's very
True.
few who stick around beyond the events
True,
actually
that's-
happening,
yeah.
which is
Like the actual event community.
yeah. And I mean I notice it too on the Mogul Mail channel, on this channel, right? Like some MCC video will get 1,000 views. That's a little bit more niche. And if I put like a Hermitcraft member related thing in there, it's get 5,000 views. And it just kind of shows like what is the interest. And like that's great. That's
Yeah.
fine. I don't really mind. It's just like you kind of, you know, sometimes something may seem popular for one reason. It might be because of another reason. And sometimes there's some room to grow. I feel like the event community is in a very odd spot because it had like MCC at such a high level immediately,
Yeah.
and everything else came after, and it's now just like, can we get back to something
Oh, yeah.
similar? And I do
But
think that
yeah.
if that were to happen, having content like a podcast, having content like a blog post, etc., is
using
really
magazines
good.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now, if anyone's thinking of doing something, no one's done news yet. Be a news anchor. That's breaking news.
I mean,
Wolfeei Mogul Mail canceled for his recent opinions on survival games.
canceled. I think I'd be knighted.
Dannypicacho canceled for his
There you
recent
go.
opinions on survival games.
I was gonna say, like, I go SG bad. People are like, "Yep, you go SG's my favorite game ever," which you don't say, by the way. Or no, Chaos will say that. Chaos will be like, "I love survival games. It's the best game ever."
You know, people seem to think that I like genuinely love survival games, but I'm gonna be honest. Survival games in Sky High are fucking mid games. Like as someone who is so obsessed with game design, I cannot favor games that are battle royale because battle royale is inherently
Flawed.
bad game design.
Yeah.
Well, not bad. It's flawed. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, how do you deal with third parties? How do you deal with ratting? How do you deal with brain dead gameplay? How do you deal with this and that? How do you deal with damage farming from a long range? You know, there's so many things that you just can't account for, and it's not your fault. It's just the fault of the gameplay.
So yeah. Anyways, I think it's time to round it out. Anything you want to shout out? Maybe a little bit difficult considering you don't do content creation much and PB's on break.
Not
so-
anymore. Okay. Follow PB. Follow at Pandora's Box MC on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Dannypicacho, if you can spell it. I'm sure it'll be in the title or something.
I mean, you're on.
Um,
Your name on the bubbles is Danny Pistachio, but I'll probably get you in the description at least.
Yeah. Just follow me there. I haven't released a video in 2 years, but I have been editing a Block Wars Rookies video. Shout out Block Wars.
Hey, and if
But,
you're unfamiliar with PB and haven't watched a PB yet, check out a VOD from Dragon Pit. It's the
Oh my god, yes.
the
it's
best taste
Dragon
of
Pit.
PB you'll ever get.
Watch the Wolfeei POV.
Sure,
It was fire.
that's a good one.
That's a great one. That's my favorite one.
That is quite a good one.
I
do not
really
touch
like...
the coldified POV. I'm just kidding.
No, Cobalt is also a really cool POV, but if you
Yeah.
want like winner's POV, I mean, even that was I watched a good bit of like, you know, like Zam interactions were really funny as well. Like, I mean, Fruit Berries. I'm a Fruit Berries fan, so it's like
Yeah.
biased.
And then Sneeg is like the cool guest
And
appearance.
it's, oh,
right?
dude, Sneeg was so funny. Oh, him during Temple Lockout as well.
Yep. Where it's like, turn that shit up.
Turn that shit up. It's so funny.
Yeah.
And then for Hades Havoc, I mean,
Oh,
like,
yeah. I mean,
Cobalt was just like crazy
Yeah.
POV for that.
of course. Okay.
Of course.
Well, I think that rounds it out. This was Danny Pistachio for PB and game design. Probably the title will probably be Pandora's Box and game design or something along those lines, because it'll,
Yep.
that's what we do. And all right, that's gonna be it.
Bye bye.
Bye.